Hasrat-e-Zindagi Mamuli. This is the name of the Mumbai-based collective that you're representing now. Uh, just the name, just the name. What can I say? What do you want us to, leave us with a thought about what it means, power, not having it, not being recognized, not being included. Because to say Hasrat-e-Zindagi Mamuli, आपकी मांग ही इतनी छोटी है और इतनी बड़ी है.
Yes, so it is a Mamuli Zindagi, but Mamuli defined by us. Mamuli not defined by society. Because I don't think that the queer imagination is of replicating family structures. The queer imagination is of building new ways of being. And that is Mamuli for me. It's Mamuli for somebody to go in full resplendent glory in ways that turn everybody's eyes towards them. But that is Mamuli for me because that's what I want to do. And I am not stepping on anybody's toes. I am doing what I need to do with my life. And I let everybody else do what they need to do with their lives. Offering multiple options for Mamuli lives, I think that is what is queer. That is what queerness is all about. And our hasrat is only that much. We're not asking for the world. We're asking for very small things. Every individual wants to live an ordinary life. Ordinary, defined by
Full
them,
life, an ordinary full life.
And not defined by anybody else. So,
yeah.
I must tell you that this phrase, and I must say this today because I think there's another attack that happened on an Iranian young person because they did not wear the hijab. When the Masa Mini, that thing was going on, there's a song which was made, if you remember, just called Barai, because. And that person had collected tweets and made the song, Why Are We Struggling? We're struggling because. And there was this phrase in that. Hasrat-e-Zindagi Mamuli was one phrase in that song. And we kind of loved it so much, we picked it up from there.
Hello, everybody. The Supreme Court verdict that came in last week has crushed a lot of hopes in the queer community. People who were hoping to get married have been told that they simply cannot do so under India's prevailing laws. The court did not even offer the solution of a civil union or a domestic partnership contract. That would have gone a long way in helping to ease the business of living for queer couples. I cannot get over the fact that this seems very cruel. The fact that it's also seems to be a cop-out because the Supreme Court expects Parliament to enact laws which will then make these rights available to our queer friends. So what does one make of this? How does one understand what next, what now? I'm so delighted today to be able to speak to someone who's been at the forefront of this battle for rights for decades now. She's Chayanika Shah. She's an educator. She's an activist. She's a queer trans feminist. And she's out there on the street and in the courts fighting this battle. Chayanika, so lovely that you could join us. And what are you telling people, especially young people who are calling you, reaching out to you, wanting to know what now?
Thank you for having me here and to also, continue this dialogue, because I think one of the most important things that we can do is keep talking about the issues so that they don't go out of memory and they don't kind of slip away.
Absolutely.
And definitely, I mean, many people, especially people who are very vulnerable, but young is one category in that. But many young people, many vulnerable people were really looking forward to getting some relief. Life is not easy. Life is possible, and life happens. I mean, all of us are living our lives. That is not the problem. But the number of difficulties that you have before you make you feel very dejected when something like this happens. And when the court actually says that, the majority judgment at least is clearly saying that some people have a right, but you don't deserve a right, in a sense that, you should be protected.
Heartbreaking.
It is. And I think people are writing also, I think the hate speech has increased. People are saying that on my DMs now, people are calling me out and they say, oh, nobody is with you. The Supreme Court is not with you. The country is not with you. And that also adds on to the state of dejection. So actually, it's important for many people to speak up and say that they are also upset that this has happened. Because it kind of gives a hope. It gives a hope that there's a larger community that stands with us. There is hope that our families, our friends, our people around us who matter to us will actually not take this to further the violence against us, but will help us find ways through the maze.
How worried are you, Chayanika, that this is that this could create, like you said, the incidence of hate speech has gone up, that more people are being intimidated, perhaps a little bit, saying, "Oh, look, you wanted all this, you didn't get it, so just stay put." How worried are you about this being a setback? And on the streets, will this be a setback?
I think that in families, it does make a difference. Because, I look at 2018 and I feel that after that, a lot of queer people got the courage to come out.
Yeah.
They got the courage to speak about their lives. But at the same time, post 2018, the violence from the families has increased. Because, this coming out is actually, what could be kept inside the house has now been taken out. And that is not acceptable to families.
Yeah, because it means that community and society then gets to know about your life.
Correct.
And they
would rather have you sitting at home and doing something quietly than going out. And now they have a bigger weapon. So they can say, you can't get married. What is your future? Why would you do this? And especially for women, I think it becomes that, oh, you get married and settle down, because that's a big concern. And because marriage is so compulsory in some ways, that even well-meaning people will kind of insist that, what is your future?
In fact, I logged on to the open platform that you hosted on the night of the verdict, and you said something very interesting, which is this, the Supreme Court has told heterosexual couples, you said the Supreme Court has told queer couples that they can live together, they should be protected, it should be allowed. And yet everywhere in society, and especially in India, the importance given to marriage is immense, and living together is still not something that is at all acceptable. I mean, even the courts, sometimes the lower courts definitely make remarks about these things. So there is a double standard at play here. And therefore, are you optimistic that this protection that the court has ordered, both the majority and the minority verdicts, will engender?
So the thing is that because all of them are acknowledging that there are unions, I mean, that itself is a big thing. That from 2018 to 2023, at least they're acknowledging that people are going to live together, that people have a right to live together and nobody can stop them from doing that. They're also squarely putting the burden of this protection onto the state. And this is part of the majority judgment as well. That the state has to provide that protection. The state has to make sure that people can live together in the face of violence from anybody. So I think that's a second gain that we have, which is, a further articulation of some of the things that were said in 2018, more concretely put now. The third thing that the majority judgment also says, and now we've read more, it also said that there should be no conversions. The conversion therapies of various kinds or interventions of various kinds against a person's wish, you should not be doing that. So in a sense, there is more ownership of the fact that you can live together. And I think it will help heterosexual people who don't want to marry also. Because I think our battle is kind of helping a lot of straight people who are not wanting to get married and live with each other, maybe, and facing pressure to get married because marriage is available there. They can also say that if queer people can live together, why can't we, right? So one hopes that these are the turns that we take to it.
So what are the positives that you will build on, both for, in terms of operational terms to begin with, and then to build on, because I am guessing that this battle will continue in the courts. And so far, all the rights that the queer community in India has got or acquired has been because of very, very progressive and human courts, isn't it? So two parts.
I think there are two things. Yeah. The first one is, yes, whatever protections that they have mentioned, some of them the chief has mentioned very clearly. He's kind of listed down each of the steps. He can break it down and interpret even the majority judgment to include some of those. So how do we actualize these? How do we create shelter homes, for example?
Yes.
Everybody has mentioned Shakti Vahini. Shakti Vahini judgment is mentioned everywhere. That gives safe housing to heterosexual couples. So now we need safe housing for queer couples, queer trans couples. And I think that's very, very important. No conversion therapy, very, very important. Protection from all kinds of violence and discrimination, very, very important. And we move on these. We move on this so that we can figure out easier ways of being together, easier ways of surviving in this world which may be hostile, of finding or at least holding the state accountable to make sure that we get all of this. So I think that's a clear thing that we are going to take forward from here. As far as the larger thing is concerned, where do we take it from here?
Review petitions would review petitions be the next step legally, isn't it?
It is a possibility. It is a possibility, and I'm sure that people will think about and go ahead and do it, because it's also, it's a strange judgment. There is a minority which is being critiqued by the majority. Usually, a majority judgment has a dissenting opinion from the minority. Yes. And the minority critiques the majority judgment. Here we have the other way around. Because if you read the majority judgment, it is all the time reflecting on what the minority judgment said. So it's a mixed kind of bag. And one will have to really think. But one also wants to be careful now, because we are in the Supreme Court. We don't want any more adverse remarks to be made. So how far do we go with that at this point is a judgment that people will have to make for themselves. But I think there's another path that has been opened. And we have not gone on it, but we will have to go on it. It's a very difficult path, which is actually influencing legislators or influencing, making society make elected representatives responsible for us, which is also important in today's times, because today's times we are seeing that the core of democracy is going out of our hands. That we are not finding our elected representatives
representing us in the genuine sense.
Representing the marginalized of all kinds. And so I think it is high time that we join battles. We join battles with other marginalized populations to hold these elected representatives responsible. And we use the Supreme Court judgment to do that, because the Supreme Court is clearly saying that the legislature needs to do this. So we hold them responsible for it. And this being the election year, I think at least we can start becoming voices that are part of the larger manifestos that parties are making, the larger visions of India that are being projected at this moment. So I think that's a path that we will have to start and take. We know, and I say this with a lot of care, one has to appreciate that queer communities are not natural communities. They are people scattered across the country. Sure. They barely manage to find each other. They barely manage to find spaces to be themselves. It's a difficult task. It's a difficult task to come as a community to ask for demands. Also, it's a very varied community. There are so many kinds of people here. And there are many interests that are also there. And many, many kinds of marginalizations that are part of us. So it is a difficult task. But nonetheless, some basic concepts, starting from looking at 2009, the NAS judgment, looking at 2014, the NALSA judgment, and 2018, the Navte judgment, enough pronouncements have been made constitutionally by the Supreme Court. How do we now translate them into political action is also something that we will have to start doing.
I find it very interesting that you are emphasizing quite categorically political action, grassroots activity, engagement with parties and legislators, because so far it has been through the courts. And can I understand, can you explain to me a little bit more why that route seems to be something that at least you in this conversation don't seem to suggest that we should go full steam ahead for with, a review petition? Because I've been reading, I'm not an expert, but I've been reading that there are lots and lots of pronouncements in both the majority and minority verdicts that show the judges acknowledging discrimination, and that should become the basis, as at least conceptually of reviews, so of review petitions. So why is it that you don't seem to be stressing on that, or am I not?
In my reading of the judgment, I think that the majority judgment already lends itself for anti-discrimination measures. And that's already been stated. And I would take that and move ahead. I would go with trepidation to the court now to make any further clarification, because I'm not sure if they are on our side really, right? Because I mean, they say everything and they step back,
Why do you
especially
think they
the
were held
majority.
back, Chayanika? Why do you think they were held
You
back?
you have to read what the state has argued. You have to read that, because that is also something that we should popularize. This
Yeah,
is what the state thinks of the family. This
yeah.
is what the state thinks that a
Actually,
marriage
I
is
did
all
hear
about.
Tushar Mehta in court in May.
But now when I read the judgment and I read his arguments all put succinctly,
Hmm,
minus all the nonsense that he was talking,
hmm,
it is very clear
hmm,
what the conservatives in this country want from
hmm,
family and marriage.
hmm,
And this is not a battle that's only a queer trans battle. This
hmm.
is a battle that feminists have waged for many years. This is a
Yes.
battle that Dalit communities have waged for many years. This is a battle that tribal communities have waged for many years.
Hmm,
And so I think it is time that we start talking about this. And I also think that in the last 25 years, our conversations with progressive movements have moved. They're not where we were. It's not as if we have to now convince people that this is a wrong. Everybody is recognizing that this is a wrong. There isn't as much voice, and I hope there is more. I hope there are more non-queer people speaking about this. But I sense that it's not because they don't feel it. This is in most progressive movements, I see a sense there's so much happening. And every time the Supreme Court is letting us down, so we see this as one more, but that does not mean that they don't stand with us in feeling the wrong that is being done to a
No,
community as such.
absolutely,
And so
absolutely.
that gives strength. That gives strength today. It gives strength for us to say that we have other people fighting with us. Recently, we had a meeting in Bombay, I mean in Maharashtra, of, and this is the first time that we did this. It was a national conference talking about the present situation, but of women and trans people. And
Hmm,
there's no argument about whether this group should work together and talk together. And I
hmm,
think that is the movement. That is what gives me hope to start the political process now. We
hmm,
are on much more firmer ground,
hmm,
and we must thank the Supreme Court for what it has done until now. We must thank the judicial activism that all of us have done, and the groundwork that we have done in so many years, from 1990s till the present. It's
hmm,
been a big change. And I must tell you that when the first petition was filed in Delhi, not the ABVA petition,
hmm,
but the NAS petition, when it was filed in 2001,
hmm,
we all said nothing is going to happen in our lifetimes. Right? So we were shocked when in 2009 there was a judgment that actually read down 377.
hmm,
From 2000 onwards, we've been talking of decriminalization, partnership rights, and anti-discrimination.
hmm,
We were a small voice. Today, the Supreme Court is talking about the same things. It
hmm.
is a big, I mean, in 2 decades to reach here, is a big step. And I take heart from that. But I do feel that this is not the time to do court battles. This is the time to actually join hands and do battles here. So,
Yeah, but Chayanika, since 2018, there seems to be a pretty, I would say representation, at least in popular culture, in mass culture, has gone up. In the corporate sector, you do see diversity and inclusion budgets and spends and noises. We can evaluate what they may be achieving, but at least all of this is happening. So do you see this momentum pick up, or do you see this judgment sort of temper that down as well? And how important have these areas been to make everybody feel good, to uplift spirits?
so as I said, we are a diverse community, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And for those of us who live in metros, those of us who come with a lot of privileges, this
Hmm,
has really helped. This has really opened up our lives. This probably has gotten us acceptance in homes, families, because this is the culture that we all live in.
hmm,
At the same time, I think that the trans movements that have come to the forefront because of the NALSA and because of the Trans Act, they have shifted. They have shifted what the queer trans movements were. They've
hmm,
shifted them from urban locations. They've shifted them from gay voices, and I say gay underlinedly, from there to bringing many other voices to the foreground. And
yeah.
that has brought in, and I think that this petition, the slew of petitions that we had,
Hmm,
we were still a minority voice, the voice that was speaking for the people coming from the margins, the people that are facing violence, we were still a small number of petitions that was representing that.
You
Because
you
that
were
has been,
representing three petitioners, isn't it, in
no, I
this?
was representing, our petition had 4 of us who are part of the network, who are
Right,
from urban centers, but
right,
we had 3 couples.
right.
We had 3 couples who were anonymized because they are still running away from families. And our petition was that we need marriage not just because there is rights, but marriage because there is protection from familial violence. And that was our main plea. And I see all of that as foregrounded in what the CJI spoke. And it is the backbone of the fact that they've all granted non-discrimination. Non-discrimination to the extent of that my partner will not get my pension is one kind of non-discrimination.
Sure,
But
sure.
non-discrimination that I won't be able to live my life because my family is going to force me into marriage. And non-discrimination to the extent that they will put me into conversion therapy because they don't agree with me. This is at a different level. And so all of those also got addressed. So I think that the grassroots movements which are coming from, which may not think, I mean, I don't think that trans movements are foregrounding marriage as much. They're foregrounding education, employment. A lot of us for a long time said our basic issue is education, skills, and jobs. And how do we live? Because we don't have familial support. So how do we live? When we come out of our families, young people, they have nothing in their hands. So actually for us, the issues of the marginalized, which is that we need shelter, we need education, we need employment. Which is everybody is talking about this today, right? And these are our issues also, but we come from a different place to it.
You've given us a fresh perspective. And I think that, as an ally, you've given me hope. As supporters in the community, I think you've given us a feeling that it's okay. We can continue on this journey. Thank you very much. And I wish you a lot of good luck. I hope to have a lot more conversations as we go along.
Thank you, Anuradha. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. All the best.